Remember when Lily Allen was so upset at the plight of refugees that she cried and apologised on behalf of Britain?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that. You remember that? Remember when she said she'd be an example to others by 100% taking in a migrant herself?
You may have been asked, I'm not sure, Lily, would you take an unaccompanied child into your own home? Is that
100%.
something you've considered?
100%.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? Especially if they're a big celebrity with a bunch of money and properties.
Who wouldn't?
Turns out, Lily Allen wouldn't.
100% wouldn't.
Nearly 2 years after making that promise, The Guardian asked Lily Allen how many refugees she'd taken in. Drum roll, please.
You may have been asked, I'm not sure, Lily, would you take an unaccompanied child into your own home? Is that something you've considered?
100%.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
And it's none. Well, imagine my shock.
Life is easier for me if I put this stuff out of mind.
Which you did. But wait, maybe I was wrong. Lily Allen did house 2 foreigners in her spare £1.5 million apartment last year. Oh wait, they were wealthy Italians paying her thousands of pounds a month in rent.
Who wouldn't?
But wait. Maybe Lily housed some migrants in her £4.2 million countryside mansion, which is located in the Cotswolds, one of the whitest areas in Britain, with virtually no immigration whatsoever. No, she didn't.
Life is easier for me if I put this stuff out of mind.
Just as it was for Bob Geldof, Benedict Cumberbatch and numerous other celebs who vowed to take in refugees and ended up taking in fuck all refugees. Turns out Lily Allen's crocodile tears were just one big act of virtue signalling. Now, the right always accuses the left of feigning their moral righteousness to appear kind and charitable, while in reality, behind the scenes, being nasty, vindictive and uncharitable. Turns out, it's true. That's not my opinion. No. It's science.
Yes, science! Bitch.
A new study in the Journal of Environmental Psychology found that climate change alarmists are less likely to be eco-friendly than climate change skeptics. Cornell and University of Michigan researchers studied 600 participants. They found that those who expressed the most concern about climate change were less likely to recycle, take public transport, or use eco-bags than skeptics who don't even believe in climate change. Yeah, turns out watching an Al Gore documentary, then virtue signalling about it on Facebook, doesn't really reduce carbon emissions. In other words, conservatives who don't preach all day on social media about how much they love the earth, or about how evil dictator Trump is destroying it by pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement, are actually more eco-friendly than leftists who do. So it seems the more a leftist virtue signals about something, the greater their rampant hypocrisy on that issue tends to be. Kind of like when celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio lecture us all about global warming.
Climate change is real. It is happening right now.
While flying thousands of miles in private jets to pick up environmental awards, and hanging out on 500-foot gas-guzzling yachts with Middle Eastern oil billionaires, before flying his celebrity friends 6,000 miles across the world so they could listen to his speech about global warming. But it's not just hypocritical lifestyle choices that expose the left's stunning double standard. A 2014 study by the Philanthropy Chronicle found that conservatives in red states were more generous compared to wealthy liberals. Less well-off families from red states donate a relatively higher and growing proportion of their money to charity, while those at the top have been giving a smaller share as their income has increased, the study found. So again, when it comes to broadcasting how humanitarian and charitable they are, leftists have no competition. But when it comes to actually giving money, they go completely AWOL, because why part with actual cash when it's so much cheaper to just signal that virtue? And anyway, you can still purchase these poverty is sexist sweatshirts for the bargain price of $380. I mean, they're so obsessed with virtue signaling, it's not enough anymore to just do it themselves. Now they're using their own children as woke human shields.
My daughter started crying at the dentist's office because the dentist is a boy, and the dentist said, sorry, there are no girl dentists at this office, and my daughter looked at me and said, why did we come here?
Things that didn't happen, part 654,739. But there's nothing funnier than when virtue signalling goes wrong.
If you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's...
But now that virtue signalling is so ingrained in leftist mob culture, giant transnational corporations are using it as a PR stunt to get free advertising. Heineken celebrates open borders. Pepsi panders to the resistance. Of course, it's all just a crude marketing ploy to stand out from the competition and sell more things. But who said that virtue signalling had to be about authenticity? When the international multi-billion-dollar company slaps a rainbow on their sweatshop-made goods, soy face! Virtue signalling is also used to distract from the very behaviour it claims to condemn. Eric Schneiderman was just one of many prominent Me Too advocates to lead the charge against the sexual abuse of women while sexually abusing women. If someone can't shut up about how much they care about women's equality, watch out, because they're probably compensating for something.
How could a man so publicly committed to feminism beat women? It just doesn't make sense. But of course it makes perfect sense. Self-righteousness is always a marker for secret creepiness. The people yelling the loudest are usually hiding the most. Hypocrisy isn't just a feature of modern liberalism, it's the heart of modern liberalism.
Virtue signalling is making everything uglier. A gallery in the UK replaced this painting with this monstrosity to virtue signal. The majority of modern art is objectively terrible because virtue signalling is more important than actual talent. Instead of enjoying toned beach bodies, we're subjected to obese land whales. Virtue signalling is making us less safe. Female firefighters are being given jobs despite failing fitness tests. GCHQ, whose primary job is to spy on terrorists, is busy on Twitter celebrating Trans Week. But while the left seems preoccupied with virtue signalling more than ever, ordinary Americans are not impressed. Ratings for award ceremonies, which have become little more than cliched platitude-spewing circle jerks, are lower than ever. After embracing virtue signalling as a core company ethos, the NFL is hemorrhaging respectability and audience figures. Eminem based an entire album on virtue signalling and only succeeded in committing career suicide. Here's the truth about virtue signalling. It doesn't require doing anything virtuous. It takes no effort or sacrifice at all. Virtue signalling is a substitute for thinking. It's mindless groupthink amplified by the contrived fury of mob outrage. This is why narcissistic, self-loathing losers adopt left-wing politics. It's the only way that they can feel good about themselves. It's a mechanism for self-satisfied twats to pretend they're better than everyone else.
Am I saying that I'm better than you? I guess I'm going a little further than you are. Yeah, I'm fucking better than you, okay? Much better than you.
Virtue signalling is inherently self-serving and selfish. The purpose of virtue signalling is to assuage guilt and gain unearned social brownie points. The purpose of virtue signalling is to incentivize others to regurgitate glib leftist narratives and create giant echo chambers. As with everything the left does, it's the lust for raw power disguised as altruistic beneficence. The aggressive virtue signaller is attempting to compensate for their lack of virtue. I'm sick to the back teeth of virtue signalling. I'm sick of all you sanctimonious phonies who engage in it. And I'm calling you all out on your bullshit right here, right now.
I'm so sorry.
Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video. Don't know if you've heard, but Kanye West has been in the news quite a bit. Bashed from pillar to post by every legacy media outlet under the sun for the crime of promoting free thought, love and understanding, which as we all know are racist ideas.
He's saying these sorts of ridiculous things that are usually promoted by white nationalists, by fringe groups, by fringe individuals, mostly on the internet, that promote racist ideas.
So let me get this straight. CNN's Brian Stelter, a podgy white guy who works for a multi-billionaire global corporation, is telling a black dude that he's racist for encouraging African Americans not to listen to a global corporation and think for themselves. Yeah, a little less white-splaining, please, Brian, and a bit more shushy shush.
But Kanye said being a slave 400 years ago was a choice. Saying slavery was a choice is absolutely a racist idea, so stop.
Have any of you been paying attention for like 5 minutes? Kanye was talking about mindset. The victimhood of slavery mindset that black people living today are told to wallow in. He wasn't talking about slaves having a choice 400 years ago. Anyone who's been following his tweets and interviews knows this. Why do you think Kanye resonated with Candace Owens? What's Candace Owens' message? That black people shouldn't remain mired in the victimhood mentality of slavery.
I don't know why people like being oppressed. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I love oppression. We're oppressed. 400 years of slavery, Jim Crow, which, by the way, none of you guys lived through.
Again, Kanye is talking about African Americans living now. Not slaves living hundreds of years ago. I mean, what kind of stupidity can we expect to encounter next? That Kanye is a Russian agent. Oh, look at this idiot.
While you are making music and being an artist and living the life that you've earned by being a genius, the rest of us in society have to deal with these threats to our lives.
So whiny Mr. TMZ staffer says Donald Trump is a threat to his life. Give me a break. You're living a life infinitely more privileged than the vast majority of people, especially black people, on the planet. You want to know the biggest threat to black people's lives? Yeah, it's black-on-black violence. Oh, but you're way more outraged over a frigging MAGA hat and a few tweets.
Conservatives, Trump supporters, and free thinkers, please do not attach yourselves to Kanye West. It will backfire. Mark my words, it will backfire.
Yeah, conservatives embracing Kanye has backfired so badly that support for Trump amongst black males has doubled in a single week.
Mark my words, it will backfire.
Mark my words.
Yeah, I marked your words and they were disproven within a matter of hours. Listen, Tommy, I don't know if your staffers forgot to heat up your butt warming pad, and that's the reason why you're so butthurt. But jealousy's never a good look. Then we have little Ben Shapiro. The never-Trumper who tried to sabotage Trump's campaign by white-knighting for Michelle Field's made-up story about being assaulted by Corey Lewandowski with his incessantly annoying boundary policing, ordering other conservatives around as to whose show they can and can't appear on.
Boundary policing used to be called having some standards.
Really, Ben? So let me get this straight. According to your logic, appearing on a network means you must simultaneously endorse the every viewpoint of the host. Well, what do we have here?
It just demonstrates the right's desperation to be taken seriously in the sphere of pop culture.
So if all this is just a pointless joke, why are you so butthurt about Candace appearing on InfoWars? Who elected you leader of the thought police?
I'm Ben Shapiro and I'm very smart.
Why is the guy who constantly whines about being no-platformed by the left trying to no-platform other conservatives through peer pressure? Here's another question. Why do establishment conservatives like Shapiro always try to shit all over every fantastic opportunity? A chance to help millions of African Americans get off the plantation of government dependency to escape the internalized oppression of identity politics. I mean, is it some kind of cuckoldry thing? Do they like to lose? So we have a global celebrity with a reach of millions, exposing those millions to thoughts and ideas they would never otherwise hear. A method that's already proving successful in the polls. And people like Shapiro are pissing their pants in fear of what might happen. I mean, God forbid we want to actually win a battle in the culture war. If that happens, Shapiro might not get invited back on CNN. All these establishment never-Trump conservatives care about is ring-fencing ideas and maintaining their stupid little cliques. They're quite happy to lose to the left over and over again, so long as they can keep their crappy National Review columns. No, bitches, your time's up. You're the past, we're the future. But let's move past the squabbling and get real here. This isn't even a left or right issue. Kanye has also endorsed gun control activist and leftist darling Emma Gonzalez. It's not a left or right issue, it's an authenticity issue. This is about the high priests of pop culture panicking about one of their own going off the reservation and expressing independent thought. This is about Kanye becoming the embodiment of the threat of a good example. This is about them freaking out over Kanye encouraging other celebrities to express free thought and to reject the same tired old cliches and insipid platitudes. Reject the very thing that has made celebrities and pop culture relentlessly boring and predictable for the past 2 decades. The legacy media and establishment commentators on both left and right are also panicking because their entire business model of partisan bickering is directly threatened by Kanye's message of unity and understanding. Their entire narrative of demonizing anyone who fails to fall into their viciously controlled political paradigm is at risk. The message is about freedom of thought. It's about liberating oneself from the fear of how the mob will react and being truly outspoken. And yet, of course, Kanye's involvement is partly motivated by free publicity and album sales, but he's amplifying the message like no one else could. Kanye West might not be the most eloquent or the most intelligent vehicle for the message, but the message is what frightens them nonetheless. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that, and click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.
The tax system explained in beer. Suppose that once a week, 10 men go out for beer, and the bill for the 10 comes to $100. If they paid their bill the way we pay our taxes, it would go something like this. The first 4 men, the poorest, would pay nothing. The 5th would pay $1. The 6th would pay $3. The 7th would pay $7. The 8th would pay $12. The 9th would pay $18. And the 10th man, the richest, would pay $59. So that's what they decided to do. The 10 men drank in the bar every week and seemed quite happy with the arrangement until one day the owner caused them a little problem.
"Since you are all such good customers," he said, "I'm going to reduce the cost of your weekly beer by $20.
Drinks for the 10 men would now cost just $80. The group still wanted to pay their bill the way we pay our taxes, so the first 4 men were unaffected. They would still drink for free. But what about the other 6 men, the paying customers? How could they divide the $20 windfall so that everyone would get his fair share? They realized that $20 divided by 6 is $3.33. But if they subtracted that from everybody's share, then not only would the first 4 men still be drinking for free, but the 5th and 6th man would each end up being paid to drink his beer. So the bar owner suggested that it would be fairer to reduce each man's bill by a higher percentage. They decided to follow the principle of the tax system that they had been using, and he proceeded to work out the amounts he suggested that each should now pay. And so, the 5th man, like the first 4, now paid nothing, a 100% saving. The 6th man now paid $2 instead of $3, a 33% saving. The 7th man now paid $5 instead of $7, a 28% saving. The 8th man now paid $9 instead of $12, a 25% saving. The 9th man now paid $14 instead of $18, a 22% saving. And the 10th man now paid $49 instead of $59, a 16% saving. Each of the last 6 was better off than before, with the first 4 continuing to drink for free. But once outside the bar, the men began to compare their savings.
"I only got $1 out of the $20 saving,"
declared the 6th man. He pointed to the 10th man.
"But he got $10.
"Yes, that's right," exclaimed the 5th man. "I only saved $1 too. It's unfair that he got 10 times more benefit than me." "That's true," shouted the 7th man. "Why should he get $10 back when I only got 2? The wealthy get all the breaks." "Wait a minute," yelled the first 4 men in unison. "We didn't get anything at all. This new tax system exploits the poor." The 9 men surrounded the 10th and beat him up. The next week, the 10th man didn't show up for drinks, so the 9 sat down and had their beers without him. But when it came time to pay the bill, they discovered something important. they didn't have enough money between all of them to pay for even half of the bill. And that, boys and girls, journalists and government ministers, is how our tax system works. The people who already pay the highest taxes will naturally get the most benefit from a tax reduction. Tax them too much, attack them for being wealthy, and they just might not show up anymore. In fact, they might start drinking overseas, where the atmosphere is somewhat friendlier.
Once upon a time, there were 3 brothers, triplets, named Tom, Dick, and Harry Class. They were raised in the same home with the same parents, had the same IQ, same skills, and same opportunities. Each was married and had 2 children. They were all carpenters making $25 per hour. While they were very similar in all these respects, they had different priorities. For example, Tom chose to work 20 hours per week, while his brother Dick worked 40 hours, and Harry 60. It should also be noted that Harry's wife worked full-time as an office manager for a salary of $50,000. Dick's wife sold real estate part-time 10 hours a week and made $25,000 per year. Tom's wife did not work. Tom and Dick spent all of their family income. Since they paid into Social Security, they figured they didn't need to save for retirement. Harry and his wife, on the other hand, had, over many years, put away money each month and invested it in stocks and bonds. Here's how it worked out. Tom made $25,000 a year. Dick and his wife made $75,000, and Harry and his wife $150,000. When a new housing development opened up in their community, the brothers decided to buy equally priced homes on the same private street. One day, the brothers decided to pool their funds for the purpose of improving their street. Concerned about crime and safety, and wanting a more attractive setting for their homes, the 3 families decided to install a security gate at the street's entrance, repave the street's surface, and enhance the lighting and landscaping. The work was done for a total cost of $30,000. Harry assumed they would divide the bill 3 ways, each brother paying $10,000. But Tom and Dick objected. "Why should we pay the same as you?" they said. "You make much more money than we do." Harry was puzzled. "What does that have to do with anything?" he asked. "My family makes more money because my wife and I work long hours and because we have saved some of the money we've earned to make additional money from investments. Why should we be penalized for that?" "Harry, you can work and save all you like," Tom countered. "But my wife and I want to enjoy ourselves now, not 25 years from now." "Fine, Tom, do what you want. It's a free country. But why should I have to pay for that?" "I can't believe you're being so unbrotherly," Tom argued. "You have a lot of money and I don't. I thought you'd be more generous." At this point, Dick, the peacemaker in the family, entered the conversation. "I've got an idea," Dick said. "Our combined income is $250,000, and $30,000 is 12% of that amount. Why don't we each pay that percentage of our income? Under that formula, Tom would pay $3,000, I would pay $9,000, and Harry would pay $18,000. "I have a much better idea," said Tom, "and one that's fairer than what you're proposing." Dick and Harry turned to Tom. "Harry should pay $23,450. Dick, you should pay $6,550, and I will pay nothing." To Dick, this sounded completely arbitrary and not really fair, but it did have one big plus. His share would be $2,450 less under Tom's formula than under his own. So he decided to be silent. Harry, however, was stunned. "You want me to pay almost 80% of the bill despite the fact that each of us is receiving the exact same benefits? Where did you get such a crazy idea?" "From no less an authority than the U.S. government," Tom responded as he pulled out a gray booklet. "It's all right here in the IRS tax tables. This is the progressive income tax system all U.S. taxpayers live under, and I don't see why we should be any different. In fact, I believe all future improvements should be paid in this way." "Works for me," said Dick. So, By a vote of 2-1, the cost of the street improvements was divided as Tom had proposed, even though they benefited equally, and even though the reason Harry had more money was that he and his wife had worked many more hours than his brothers and their wives, and had saved some of what they had earned, instead of spending it all. Tom and Dick lived happily ever after with their new arrangement. Harry grumbled a lot, but whenever he complained, his brothers called him greedy and selfish. The end.
How do you defend your opinion as a white, well-off, religious man? How do you defend your, telling a woman what she can do with her body?
Because evil things are still evil, even if I'm a white, well-off, religious man. And good things are still good, even if I'm a white, well-off, religious man. This is one of these identity politics points that I really, I don't mean to come down harshly on you, I don't. But it is a point that I really have serious moral qualms with. I think it's quite terrible. The reason being that the people who were fighting against enslavement of black people were a bunch of well-off white men, for the most part. Right? And those people were saying, this is a moral sin. This is a moral blot. They weren't living in the South. They didn't own plantations. They didn't live the lives of the plantation owners. They said, this is evil, and we are here to stop it. Right? When you see something that you think is morally wrong happening, especially when you're talking about the taking of a human life, like, listen, I think that you shouldn't go around randomly killing homeless people. I just have this view. I'm not a homeless person. Most of the people who randomly kill homeless people are probably not of my economic strata, my religious view, or my, I don't know whether they're of my skin color or not. I have no idea what the actual sociological breakdown of homeless killer serial murderers is. But I would suggest that my identity has nothing to do with what is right or wrong. And this is what Western civilization used to be about. Western civilization used to be about the idea that, yes, I'm not a woman in the healthcare field, but you and I can have a conversation about what's right and wrong because this is the nature of human reason. The nature of human reason, the nature of right and wrong, is that you and I can talk about what's right and wrong and that I don't retreat into my identity. If we can all retreat into our identity and our morality is now centered around that identity, morality doesn't exist at all. We break down into a society of fragmented atoms where I can't even say, like, you're torturing a puppy in your backyard. I have nothing to say about that. I'm not a white woman who's in the healthcare field. I'm not going to do that. I refuse to surrender the idea that I can have a moral stance on issues that are of concern to society and of concern to the well-being of the United States simply because of the color of my skin or the nature of my genitalia. And honestly, I believe any view that feels differently is sexist, racist, and bigoted. Right? The problem is that anytime you draw any line other than the inception of the child, you end up drawing a false line that can also be applied to people who are adults. So either human life has intrinsic value or it doesn't. I think we both agree that adult human life has intrinsic value. Can we start from that premise?
I believe that sentience is what gives something moral value, not necessarily being a human alone.
Okay, so when you're asleep, can I stab you?
I'm still considered sentient when I'm asleep.
Okay, if you are in a coma from which you may awake, can I stab you?
Well then, no.
I'm glad you answered that because I have no interest in actually murdering you.
But that's still potential sentience, and it's still a potential.
I agree. It is potential sentience. You know what else is potential sentience? Being a fetus.
Yeah.
There's nothing older in the history of mankind than the idea that wisdom resides in the few, the elite. And they have been ordained to forcibly impose that wisdom on the rest of us. That's the ugliest parts of human history are explained by that kind of phenomena, where people think that they have the right to control the lives of other people. It's an arrogance. Just think about this for a second. Now, suppose I write a letter to the Congress of the United States, or any of you. You write a letter to the Congress of the United States. Just say Walter Williams does. And I tell the Congress of the United States, my name is Walter Williams, and I am an emancipated adult. I am fully capable of taking care of my own retirement needs. If I fail to do so, let me depend on charity or die in the streets. But stop taking money out of my paycheck to put in your bankrupt retirement plan named Social Security. Now, how do you think that would be greeted by the Congress of the United States? It'd be greeted with contempt. That is, here I am, an adult, and I want to take care of my own retirement. Now, if I'm too resolute in wanting to do that by not sending my money, they'll kill me. Look, you might say, well, some of the listeners might say, the viewers might say, well, what's this guy talking about killing? Well, suppose I tell the agents of the United States Congress, I'm not allowing any of my money to go to Social Security. What are they going to do? They're going to fine me. And I say, I'm not going to pay your fine. They say, well, we're going to take your house. I'm going to say, no, you're not. This is my house. They're going to send armed agents to take my house, and I'm going to be in my window, armed, to protect my house, and they're going to kill me. It's as simple as that.
Been established for good reasons. But once it's established, there's a pot of money there, and people are going to go after it. And the Interstate Commerce Commission is going to come under the control of the railroads. The FDA is going to come under the control of the drug industry, and so on down the line. What this suggests is that a free society may be an unstable equilibrium position. By chance or otherwise, you can get established. But it's very hard to maintain it, because if you push it, it tends to go in one direction. If you expand government, it tends to stay expanded. The hardest thing in the world is to get something undone. You go back in history and name the government activities that have been closed down, and there are very few and far between. Alcoholic prohibition of alcohol is one example. And there are 2 or 3 other examples, but it's very hard to find cases in which the role of government has been rolled back. You can find many cases where it's been expanded. And the reason is simple. People say the difficulty in cutting down government is that people want all the goodies that government gives. But they don't. That's a bunch of nonsense. Does everybody in this room want to pay twice the world price for sugar? If that were put to a vote, do you think it would be approved by the American people? But Archer Daniel Midlands thinks we ought to pay twice as much for sugar. And we do. So I don't believe it's true for a second that we have so much government because people have such demands upon government. We have so much government because once you get started in an area, it becomes a preserve of the people who can best take advantage of it, and they have a far greater interest in maintaining it than the population at large has in destroying it.
A lot of people say, well, we got to change politicians. I say, no. But politicians are not to blame for these problems that we have. We can blame them a little bit. We can blame them for not being statesmen. We can blame them for being hustlers. We can blame them for being liars. But, ladies and gentlemen, the bulk of the blame lies with you and I, because politicians are doing precisely what you and I elect them to office to do. And what do we elect them to office to do? We elect them to office to use the power of their office to take what belongs to one American and give it to us. Or to give one American a privilege that will be denied another American. I mean, you see this, you say, well, not we people in California. Well, imagine... Imagine I'm running for the United States Senate in California. Now, I go up and down the state and I tell the people of California, look, I have read the United States Constitution, namely Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, and if you send me to Washington, don't expect for me to bring back Meals on Wheels, aid to higher education, highway construction funds, because it's not in the Constitution of the United States. Do you think I would get elected to the Senate? No, I wouldn't. Now, here's the tragedy of it, ladies and gentlemen, that from a narrow economic self-interest point of view, Californians will be exactly right not sending me to the United States Senate. Why? Because if I don't bring back billions of dollars worth of goodies, it doesn't mean that Californians will pay a lower federal income tax. All it means is that Nevada will get it instead. That is, when legalized theft begins, it pays for everybody to get involved. And those who don't get involved wind up holding the brown end of the stick. So that is the tragedy. It's making sense for all of us to get involved with using government to take somebody else's money. It's a tragedy in happening in our country. Now, you'll get a lot of people say, some of your politicians out here will say, well, Williams, all these things are justified in the Constitution under the General Welfare Clause. That is utter nonsense. And if you read the words of people like Madison, you know, Madison, James Madison, he objected to money going to some French refugees, I believe in 1789, 1792, something like that. And he said, I'm virtually quoting him, he says, I cannot lay my finger on the article in the Constitution that warrants Congress taking the money of their constituents for the purposes of benevolence. And James Madison is the father of the Constitution. So he should know. And with regard to the word general welfare, he says that, as a matter of fact, I think I quoted in the foreword to the book, in the preface or the introduction. He says that if we apply the word general welfare to everything, it'll turn the Constitution into something that was not contemplated by its designers.